Today on the Nerdy Gritty, movies will soon need to meet a list of inclusion standards to qualify for Best Picture. Is it enough or too much?
One more world disappears inside it. Just another hopeless addict. World that makes a man insane. If the drums don't get you, the guitars will.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Nerdy Gritty, where we delve deep into the details of pop culture. I am your best supporting podcaster, Dez.
And I'm your best boy and key grip, Fox.
Yeah, let it go. Stop it.
No, I must grip onto this key. Nobody knows
Fox.
nobody knows what they do.
Nobody knows what a key grip does.
Nobody knows what a key grip does. It's okay.
You know what we have done? Predicted
So much.
a lot of things.
Yeah, we are the Nostradamus of the entertainment industry. Collectively.
We really are.
Yeah.
So, that being said, I'm reading you the title of an article from Collider.com here.
All right.
Fast and the Furious 9 to launch Dominic Toretto into outer space.
I'm so excited. I've seen this. It was okay. I've seen this. I know that it is not like, hey, here's the exact plot point. Essentially, if I remember correctly, it was like a radio interview or something with Letty. Not Letty.
Ludacris.
Was it with Ludacris? With
So
one of them.
Here's the way it is.
Yeah.
It began with Ludacris, and it was just a rumor. Like Ludacris mentioned something, and then briefly, and being the sneaky people that media are, they went
snakes.
to Michelle Rodriguez, and they just straight up said, hey, so we heard Fast 9's going into space. And she said, quote, no way, how'd you find out about that? See what happens? People start talking behind the scenes. And then she goes on to talk a little bits about it.
Sure.
Inadvertently, she confirms it.
The skeptic in me wants to say that's just like a bait and switch, that's a funny joke. Let's but also if it doesn't happen now, she's a liar and a fiend. I'll be very upset.
Where else are they going to go? I was just talking to my mom about this last night.
I'm so excited.
About how there is spectacle creep going on in the Fast movies. For sure. In the preview of the last one, they hook a car onto the rope of a bridge.
This is a preview for the next one, for Fast 9.
Oh, is it Fast 9? Okay.
Yeah.
And then they rope swing, Batman swing, Spider-Man swing on that rope across the...
They are fully in the realm of, we know.
So, Fox,
we know what's going on.
Here's my question to you. Our running joke for years has been Fast and the Furious in space. That's happening now.
Yeah.
What is next?
Other dimensions?
What is next? Ooh, Fast and the Furious Dimensions.
It'd be difficult if like a time travel kind of thing.
Okay.
Like we're in space and now we've broken the light barrier. We're going FTL with our sweet cars. And they go back to, and because, here's what it is. Fast 10, your seatbelts. They launch into space and break the FTL barrier. And because at the beginning of the movie, it starts with like thermonuclear war that, destroys half the planet.
Right, of course.
It's essentially like an Endgame kind of thing, where the bad thing happens and they have to go back and fix it, and they get cool suits, and there's a purple space monster, and they actually just insert themselves into Endgame.
Endgame.
We get a special like bonus scene where it's the Avengers Assemble scene, and a portal opens up and Dominic Toretto drives a Charger through it. And here we go, Dominic Toretto. This is the reveal. He's playing the Ghost Rider, and he's driving his Hell Charger.
I would be there for that. I would be, and to be clear, not Vin Diesel as Ghost Rider.
Yeah,
Dominic Toretto as Ghost Rider.
Now we have the Fast. This is just bringing in more cinematic universes.
What else is going on in the world of news there, Fox?
You okay? You've seen the Xbox prices?
I have seen the Xbox.
$300 or $25 a month for a Xbox Series S,
Right.
$500 or $35 a month for the Xbox Series X.
Which legitimately that may get me to buy an Xbox.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting. I mean, I did the math, and doing an leasing or whatever you want to call it, an Xbox Series X or S requires a 2-year commitment.
Right.
So it ends up actually costing double just buying one outright, and you also So
but you also get Xbox Gold and Game
you
Pass
get the all
things like that.
you get the Games Pass.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. We actually, I don't know if you've seen this, but we've also actually learned the price of the PS5 now.
No, for sure?
Yeah, 100%. Well, just one version of it.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Who leaked it?
Let's see. I'm on a GameSpot article.
Okay.
PlayStation 5 pre-orders start on September 10th. For the 24 karat gold edition. This is a real thing. I'm not making this up. This is a real thing. There will be a 24 karat digital or 24 karat gold digital PlayStation 5 for $10,000.
Who? Why?
$10,000, as well as you can get a PS5 controller that's similar for $649. You can get a PS5 headset that's 24 karat gold for this is in pounds, but some kind of a lot of money. So $10,000. That's ridiculous and stupid and just.
But people are going to buy it. You know that some.
Oh, they are. It's for if you have more money than sense.
Yes.
What I hate about this is not that it exists, because whatever, who cares? But it's the fact that we know the price of this before we know the price of the actual regular console that people are going to buy. I am baffled why Sony hasn't dropped a price yet.
Legitimately, I would think it's because theirs is pricier to like a detrimental point, and they're trying to find every way possible to say, how can we lower the price?
Yeah.
Or how can we add things like, what can we do to compete with this? Because this is a brilliant move on Microsoft. I mean, you guys know from Fox and I talking for a long time that we're PlayStation preference, but this is awesome. Well, on a brighter note.
Brighter than 24 karat gold?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You know Waze, the navigation app?
Yeah.
I have a Nerdist article here that says Kevin Conroy's Batman can now narrate your Waze commute.
What?
Kevin Conroy has done voiceover enough for Waze directioning or Waze guidance.
Oh, it wasn't that he went in and specifically, it's like they're using his voice to.
I'm guessing he went in and recorded it for them. Yeah.
That's
and
amazing.
So that is incredible. To be able to hear Batman say, like, make a left here, make a right here. And it just, but what I want is to know how he sounds whenever you, like, take a wrong direction. Instead of, like, redirecting, he's got to get, like, what have you done?
What are you doing?
Where are the drugs?
Where are the drugs? That's Christian Bale.
So my question to you, Fox, is who else should narrate directions? This was the other one that I wanted to riff on for a little while. This was the other option for intro.
Sure. I mean,
who else should narrate? Who has iconic voice? Things like this. I want Gandalf.
Yeah. What's his? Ian McKellen would be a great voice using specifically a Gandalf.
Right. Because this is not Kevin Conroy. This is Kevin Conroy as Batman.
I mean, Kevin Conroy's got a great voice on its own, but yes, he still uses a Batman voice.
Right. So I want Ian McKellen as Gandalf to say things like, "Oh, it's this way."
Yeah. I want it to, like, when the internet, when it doesn't connect or doesn't recognize where you are, to just say, I have no memory of this place. Let's get on to what we've been getting into this week.
Indeed.
I'm going to start with a couple movies.
Yeah, me too, but go ahead.
I'm going to go with complete opposite of the cultural impact or cultural blindness of Bill and Ted. Of dang it, I gave it away. Of
the
of
cultural
Mulan.
blindness of Bill and Ted.
No, I watched Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Yeah.
And it is, you know how the first two are dumb, fun movies,
Yeah.
but they're not like I have to turn my brain off because it's so stupid. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
They're just like,
They're aware of themselves. Yeah.
yeah, a couple of like dumb guys who are just eternally positive, and the plot makes no sense. But the whole time you're just like, this is goofy and fun, and the joke, and it's also very funny. Like, it's not. Well, that's Face the Music. That's like it has. I really wish they toned down how much like digital effects they used,
Yeah.
because it made it feel less good. Like, I wish it kind of just looked like an old Bill and Ted movie again. But it was just as dumb and just as like two positive guys just got a problem they need to solve.
I also watched a couple of movies. The first one I'll bring up is Code 8. This is a Netflix-made movie.
Yeah, that's the Wachowskis, right?
Is it really? I didn't know that.
Pretty sure.
I do know that it was a 10-minute short that became intriguing enough that they made a full-length film out of it. And I will say that I loved this movie. I give it a 7.5, maybe even 8, for what it was trying to be. Like, it's obviously a little bit lower budget, and the actors that they cast in it were mid-range actors. It was Stephen Amell and
yeah, I'm wrong. It's not the Wachowskis.
Stephen Amell, who is Arrow.
Yeah.
He's one of the supporting characters. The main character is his brother, whom I don't remember the name of, but I will admit Robbie Amell. I will admit his character is not a very interesting character. He's a very cliche, I'm doing bad things for good reasons character, very cliche written stuff.
Sure.
All the other characters were great, though. Huh. Like, Stephen Amell crushed it. He very much like was the character that's supposed to be like, I'm the bad guy but I support other bad guys type of thing. But he does not end up having the bad guy with a heart of gold. He's just a bad guy, and he does bad things, and he maintains that character.
So my wife is in law school, and we've been watching law-based movies for funsies.
Oh yeah.
And we watched 12 Angry Men the other day. Which I'm not here to review it because obviously it's a freaking classic, one of the greatest movies ever made.
But it's not very good, you know?
It is terrible. Yeah, you're right. No, if you don't know what 12 Angry Men is, it is, first of all, go watch it. Second of all, it's about a jury deliberating a murder case. It's it's a simple concept. It starts off with the judge telling them, here's your job, here's what you're supposed to do. And then they go into the jury room, and until the last 30 seconds of the movie, the entire thing is them. It's essentially a bottle episode of a movie where it's just them discussing the details of the case and trying to go through it. And there's a lot of things I kind of realized as this is the second time I've seen it. I realized as I was watching it, first of all, it's never revealed if the conclusion they come to is correct or not. Which I really love.
I like that. Yeah.
It's never like, it's not a whodunit, you know? It's not just a crime procedural.
Right.
What it's about like human bias and like our willingness to believe people or not. It's more about like what we're willing to accept as truth and how much faith we put into the system, the legal system.
Right.
There's a lot of layers to it.
Yeah.
And what I do love also is that it does a very good job of everything is revealed to you through these conversations they have. You're not given a rundown you're not like shown what happened vaguely and then talked about. So like something will be introduced and then you'll be like, well, what if this or what if this? And then those two like arguments you just made are inevitably talked about. So it just gets you to reveal your own biases to a certain extent.
On the entire other end of the spectrum, I watched the new Netflix movie Love Guaranteed.
That sounds
comedy that I chose to watch.
That sounds terrible.
I chose to watch this because it is starring Rachel E. Cook.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. All right, I completely understand why you are watching that.
since the Tom and Huck movie came out in 1995, I have had a crush on Rachel Lee Cook. I was 13 years old and I saw that movie and I'm like, I love her now forever.
Yep.
And here I am, a 37-year-old man, and I see her in this movie and I'm like,
boom,
it's her. I gotta watch it again.
There it is. Gotta watch it.
Right, yeah. It's bad, y'all. It's a real bad movie.
It's garbage.
Even from the measurements of romantic comedies, which are kind of an outdated genre, I would say.
Sure.
Even from the measurement of romantic comedies, it's a bad movie. I kid you not. And I'm gonna try not to spoil anything in case there is anybody. If you just want check your brain at the door, feel good romantic comedy, you know exactly what's gonna happen, but you want to watch it anyway. I'm not going to spoil this for you, so you can go see Love Guaranteed. But what I will say is, at 8 minutes and 30 seconds into the film,
ooh,
after about a 1 minute like credits intro type of thing, at 8 minutes 30 seconds into the film, I looked at my wife and I told her exactly what would happen in the end. I was 100% correct. I know because I paused the film. And it said 8 minutes and 30 seconds. And then I looked at her and I told her what was going to happen.
Here's the plot. I'm going to leave.
And I was exactly right.
I've got one last thing.
Yeah, I got one last thing too. You go ahead.
I finally read the graphic novel Blankets by Craig Thompson.
Ooh, I've never even heard of this.
Yeah, it's if you look up like, hey, best, graphic novels of all time or top 10 or whatever, this will always be on there. Blankets is considered one of the best graphic novels. It's not a biographical story about him growing up in a religious family and trying to deal with what the consequences of that. And there's really not any one specific thing that it's about, but there is a large section about him, like, basically falling in love for the first time. And the 2 weeks that he spends with this girl, like with her family and stuff, and just kind of the impact it has on him. And Craig Thompson is an incredible author. He also draws everything.
I'm looking at this and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
To me, like just some of the art in here, to me, it's like if Junji Ito, instead of doing body horror, did like the dreamscape type art.
Yeah, he's very ethereal with how he draws.
Yeah,
especially
really
when he's like describing Reina, who is the girl that he falls in love with. There's a lot of like he kind of intertwines religious imagery with her, like as in like an angel or images of Saint Mary or things like that. And it's just really interesting how he describes things and how, I guess, real he gets.
My family finally finished Legend of Korra. We got through the whole thing. And here's what I will say. I think I like the overarching story of Atla, Avatar: The Last Airbender, better than I like the entire overarching story of Legend of Korra.
Okay.
But I think I like the individual characters of Legend of Korra more than I like the characters of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Because and this is really the big one, when you look back at Atla and Aang, and spoilers for both here, by the way, just to be clear, when you look back at Atla, Aang's character arc is fine. He does have some defining moments. He does have some character growth. But for the most part, he is good guy with hope throughout the entire...
Sure, he grows up a little bit and has to answer some questions, but largely,
absolutely.
Yeah, he's very
But nothing like Zuko, of course, has this huge arc. Like,
very
his character
big
arc
shift,
is incredible. It really is. Korra's character arc through the 4 seasons is incredible.
Huh.
She grows up, loses hope, refines it, learns to live with just a trauma and struggles and all kinds of things. Her arc is phenomenal.
Well, that's all I've got.
That's all I've got too.
Let's jump into the old nerdy gritty.
Let's get into that nerdy gritty.
Before we get there, as always, take some time to talk about our Patreon. That's dezandfox. That's patreon.com/dezandfoxplay or dezandfox. I can never
Just
remember.
dezandfox. Patreon.com/dezandfox.
There you will find some ways to support us financially. We don't advertise on this. We don't take advertisements. And so that's really the best way for you to financially support us. We have 3 different tiers. At the first tier, you get a bunch of like behind the scenes. You get a bunch of extra videos, early access is a word. I can never get through these very well. Early access for a lot of our YouTube channel stuff. At the next level, though, the middle level, $5 a month, the price of a coffee a month, you will get access to the director's cut of the Nerdy Gritty. That's essentially a non-edited version of the Nerdy Gritty, where you will get at least 20, usually to 30 minutes, sometimes more, extra content. Everything before this, if you're listening to this on any of our platforms other than Patreon, you're hearing a edited down version where we just kind of cut out some of the extra stuff if we go off on tangents or just make it a little easier. Just to be clear, though, the second half, the actual Nerdy Gritty that you'll hear after this, is not edited down. That's kind of the bread and butter. That's what we really enjoy. So we get into that.
We enjoy bread and butter. Yes.
Both of those things. So just if you're able to support us, we would really appreciate that on Patreon. We also understand times are tight right now. So other ways to support us can be liking any of our content, sharing it with friends, sharing it on social media. We would love all of that. And we just love that you're listening. So we thank you a whole lot. And I think it's time to get to the Nerdy Gritty.
So a while back, we have been talking a lot about, and a lot of people are talking about, the Oscars and the Academy Awards, and just some of the shortcomings and limitations in that area as far as nominations for women, for people of color, and things of that nature. Now, the Academy Awards seem to have heard this and heard a lot of the discussions, and
they're definitely paying attention, yeah.
Right. And so they've recently, as of yesterday, I believe, right?
This was the 8th, so 2 days ago as of recording.
2 days ago,
one of those,
come out with a statement on their plan for Best Picture. Fox has this here.
Yeah, so basically there will be what's called inclusion standards that over the next couple of years will be introduced into what it takes to be qualified for Best Picture at the Oscars.
Right.
There's a lot of details here, and we're going to kind of go through the 4 different big standards with some detail, but to be little less, to be kind of general right now, essentially what it means is to be able to be in the category of Best Picture, your production, the cast, the production team, the marketing team, lots of these things will need to in some way be inclusive of various different underrepresented categories, underrepresented demographics. So this can be anything from women to other racial races, or
racial
people with differently abled people, lots of different demographics that are underrepresented in the industry right now. So that's being very general about it.
Right. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of standards.
A lot of specifics that we'll get
into. And we're going to be going over these. But really what we want to talk about is how we feel about these. Are they enough, or are they even maybe too far?
Yeah.
And so we're going to be having this discussion, and we'll see how we go on here, because I can't speak for Fox, but I definitely know that I have thoughts about this.
Oh, 100%. It's a really interesting. This is before we get into the specifics. This as like an idea of trying to codify how do you make things more inclusive, instead, because you can always just say, well, just do it and be good, because that is kind of meaningless to a lot of people,
right?
If they don't recognize the bias that already exists,
right?
And so this is a really interesting way to try to achieve this standard, because there are also in some categories, and I don't have a lot of knowledge on this, in some categories of law, it is actually illegal to implement a quota of a
Right.
number of people that have to be achieved to be. So they've clearly they've tried to kind of skirt around. They're not really going for an actual number of people that you have to have. It's more of the standards that are being met in a general way. So anyway, let's get into these. There are 4 major standards, and they've announced that for the 96th Oscars in 2024, when this will be fully implemented, a film must meet 2 out of the 4 standards that we're about to discuss to be able to be qualified, to be considered for qualification.
And there are A standards, B standards, C standards, and D standards.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that there are 4 major standards, and then under each of those, there are different categories of how you can meet that standard.
Right.
It's a little in the weeds. I'm gonna, if you Google this, it's really easy to find. We're on an IGN article, is what I'm majorly looking at right now, by Jim Vegeta. I don't know.
Vevora would be my guess.
I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm very sorry, Jim. Okay, so let's get into Standard A, and this is for on-screen representation, themes, and narratives. And so to achieve this standard, a film has to meet just one of the following criteria. And if I were to, I don't want to just go through and read every single line here, but I will a little bit for this first part because a lot of it's kind of repeated in how like the different categories. So here we go. So one of the standards that might be met to achieve this standard, one of the categories, lead or significant supporting actors. At least one of the lead actors or significant supporting actors is from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group, including Asian, Hispanic/Latinx, Black/African American, Indigenous/Native American/Alaskan Native, Middle Eastern/North African, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander, or other underrepresented race or ethnicity. The next possible thing that you can do to meet this standard is have at least 30% of all actors in secondary and more minor roles from at least 2 of the following underrepresented groups: women, racial or ethnic groups, LGBTQ+, or people with cognitive or physical disabilities who are deaf or hard of hearing. The third way you could possibly achieve this first standard is that the main storyline's theme or narrative of the film is centered on an underrepresented group: women, racial or ethnic group, LGBTQ+, or people with cognitive or physical disabilities who are deaf or hard of hearing. So that's just the first standard that might possibly be met to achieve this new inclusion requirements. And so let's just talk about that right off the bat, and we can get into the next one after that. But how does that hit you?
Immediately, like, I have a knee-jerk reaction of that is pretty limiting, and I think I get.
What do you mean by limited?
Because I think I get that knee-jerk reaction because when I see all of these, my brain's first thought is to say they have to meet all of these, and essentially the purpose of a film is to tell a story and to believably tell a story. And sometimes there are stories that are going to be told that may not, like, for the story to be a believable story, may not be able to meet all of these. Now, as I read through it again, as I look at it, and it's like, oh, it can be any one of the following criteria.
One of them, yes.
Right.
It doesn't have to be all.
And that makes things way, way easier. Absolutely
almost
easier.
Like laughably easy.
Right.
Oh, you've got one main character who is non-white, you're good.
But, if you wanted to make a story about, let's say, for example, there was the movie called Amazing Grace about an abolitionist in early America, and how and this is one of those like cheesy Christian movies,
sure,
but how he wanted, his faith is what brought him to be an abolitionist. It's kind of hard when your real, genuine story is about a white man who is an abolitionist trying to end this, but then having to believably have supporting cast or have your storyline include these types of things. Now, I guess you could say, well, technically it's about a racial or ethnic group. Or
no, but you could, okay, is his wife in the movie? Does she play a significant role?
And again, historically,
Then you're
I don't
done.
know. I don't know
I'm
if
just
she
saying
did.
you could.
You could, right. And you could
Very
do that.
easily.
But again, it was also a patriarchal society, even more heavily than today.
Sure.
And so again, if you want to be historically accurate, maybe the fact was his wife wasn't much. Maybe she was the type of woman who did whatever her husband said and whatever else. And so here would be a real historical story that tells a good, important story. Something that is good
Could
and
be,
important. Yeah, could be good and important. But if your goal is to be historically accurate, maybe historically accurate, you can't really meet all of these standards. And what do you want to do about that? Now, again, we've said that you could bend things a little bit. You could also just accept the fact that you're not going to be nominated for Best Picture, because this is exclusively for Best Picture. You can get all kinds of other nominations. Or there are a lot of things you could do, but if at the end of the day, there is a limitation here. There are stories that could be good, important stories,
right,
that are going to be told that are now limited because of this.
That's true, and that would definitely be more true if there weren't also 3 other major standards that we'll get to. But yeah, you're right. There are stories in history where maybe due to terrible things going on, that black people are not going to be represented in these stories because it's about the North in early America, and
right.
So let's move on. I think I do agree with you there. Like, it could potentially limit, and it's also, I mean, I think it's important to say, like you've said, it's not limiting the movies that can be made. It's limiting the qualifications for Best Picture.
Right.
And let's be honest, that movie about, the abolitionist guy, Amazing Grace, was never going to be up for Best Picture regardless of its inclusion. Like, it's not a great movie. So anyway, so let's move on to the second standard here.
All right,
this is where we immediately move out of the actual on-screen representation. So this is creative leadership and project team. So I'm not really going to list all the different categories again because it'd just be repeating the same thing.
Yeah, there's a lot. So.
But for this one, for standard B, you have to meet, again, just one of these different criteria. And the first criteria is creative leadership and department heads. So this would be at least 2 of the following creative leadership positions and department heads: your casting director, your cinematographer, composer, costume designer, editor, hairstylist, makeup artist, producer, production designer, set decorator, sound, VFX supervisor, writer are from the following underrepresented groups. Like, and then, it's just the ones from before, essentially. So that's a lot. That's a lot of different categories of people, different categories of job. And then at least, this is in the same criteria, at least one of those positions must belong to the following underrepresented racial or ethnic groups. So that would be that first list I read.
Right.
So the second criteria under standard B, the second one, at least 6 other crew/team and technical positions, excluding production assistants, are from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. These positions include, but are not limited to, first AD, that's assistant director, gaffer, script supervisor, etc. So even like crew roles have to be played. And then so that's the entirety of the second criteria. And your third criteria is your overall crew composition. So at least 30% of the film's crew is from the following underrepresented groups. And against the list from before. And remember, you just have to do one of those 3 criteria. This is not all 3 of these.
So any one of those criteria will qualify you for this standard.
Yes,
and you only need 2 of the 4 standards
2 out of the 4
to qualify. So to me, this is where it gets so much easier, because this is not hard. I promise you.
Right.
You can find a stylist and a makeup artist and a production designer that somewhere fits in one of these criterion. Like, this is not hard.
Look, Lord of the Rings was a big old white cracker fest.
Right.
There were not many. Not the only non-white people that I remember are evil people from the South that come and try to kill the main characters.
Right.
But they had a woman costume designer, so
That's
boom,
one.
met this criteria already. This is a very easy thing to meet, and even the movie about the abolitionist Amazing Grace probably met this criteria, met this standard, just without even trying.
And this is where I flip to the other side, where on one side I was thinking, oof, is that enough or is that too much? On this side, I wonder, is this enough? Because I already wonder how many films, and this is an ignorant question, and honest, I don't know, this is not rhetorical, how many of films just qualify for these already anyway?
Yeah.
And nobody has any idea.
I would guess, and I'm sure there's somebody out there looking and figuring it out right now or has already done it. I would guess that the vast majority, if not all of the movies who have been nominated for Best Picture in the last probably 5 years at least, probably more, did already meet these standards.
Yes.
So we'll get into that at the end here. Let's kind of go through the next categories a little quicker, because there's some bigger like philosophical things that we want to get to. So this is standard C. This is for industry access and opportunities. So it's actually moving even farther out from the core actual production, like on screen or on set. So this is moving into like criteria 1 for this. The film's distribution or financing company has paid apprentices or internships that are from the following underrepresented groups. So this is specifically, which is really interesting, it's that the companies have to be bringing people into the company or giving them the opportunity to learn how the industry works. It's not just people that are employed, it's people being brought in. So that's actually super interesting because it's kind of addressing another issue. And then there's the second criteria here. The film's production, distribution, and or financing company offers training and or work opportunities for below-the-line skill development to people from the following underrepresented groups. So again, it's basically just you are hiring people from underrepresented groups. And that is the entirety of the third criteria here.
Right.
Again, pretty vague, pretty, I would say, easy to achieve. So like, and there's not a whole lot to this one. It doesn't
that's it.
really
Just those
seem,
two.
Yeah.
And you know what? I love this one.
See, this one's
to me,
cool.
This one is very, very easy to hit. And to me, I would have made this one like a requirement, like you must meet C and one other or something like that.
Sure.
Because a big problem in the industry today, and not just movie industry, all the industries, is that a lot of businesses say, hey, we are inclusive businesses and we want to hire anybody who is skilled. But the people who have the skills are already limited by systematic racism and systematic sexism and things like that. And so therefore, people of color or women are not able to obtain the education that white men are able to get, or the experience that white men are able to get much more easily.
Yeah.
In this case, it creates a situation, it forces a situation in which 10 years from now, that scale evens out a lot more than it was before.
Right.
And you get to a point where the people who have the skills and who have the experience, and hopefully, again, 10 years from now, companies are hiring anybody with skill and experience, that evens things out hugely, because you have created a situation in which you are giving experience and giving like work experience and knowledge to underrepresented groups.
Yeah. It's we've talked about it a little before. It's the idea that it's not like, there's a complaint that I've seen in comments on this about this and about other things, where isn't it just bias, just racism in the other direction? You're specifically hiring, non-white people. Isn't that just racism? Whereas in fact, no, if somebody has a 30-second head start in a race, and so and the and halfway through the race you make them stop and let the other person get 30 seconds. Like, it's just bringing them back into equity, bringing them back into equilibrium. There was already a head start here. You are not introducing an advantage, you are taking away a disadvantage.
Right. And that's
so
the raceway is a really good way to put that.
Yeah.
But because saying, hey, we're not limiting that person. They had a 30-second start already.
Right.
Therefore, we are stalling them for 30 seconds to make things equal again.
Right.
This is not something against them. This is not shorthanding them or hamstringing them. This is creating a situation in which the race that is already in progress is now a little more fair.
Right, exactly. So let's just get to the last one here, the last of the 4 standards. The studio and or this is representation in marketing, publicity, and distribution. The studio and or film company has multiple in-house senior executives from among the following underrepresented groups on their marketing, publicity, and or distribution teams. We'll get to this last part right below that after this. But so this is that's the one criteria for this.
Yeah.
You don't have a selection here. You got this thing or you don't meet it. And it's essentially saying what was said before, but for this specific area of your marketing and publicity, your out there interviewing people and just in a different category of the production and the business side of things.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, as far as that seems pretty similar. Like, it's just another example of like, well, people already have a head start here. This is to try to bring everybody up into equity so that the race can continue from a more equal standpoint.
This is one to me that this is another question and another statement from a place of ignorance. I don't know.
Right.
I literally don't know how impactful to the industry marketing and distribution is.
Yeah.
Like how when it comes to
you're
the point
frozen.
that the film is finished, everything's done, and now we're marketing. Hey, underrepresented group, you are now distributing this and marketing this. Does that make a big difference?
I mean,
know that it does.
The positive side of the optimist side of me says, well, it's on here. It must have been an issue. It must be an issue still. But also, I would imagine that, like distribution is getting movies to theaters and showing it in places. And I would imagine, like, I don't know, maybe it's like a gerrymandering thing where it's like, this is like in politics, it's, well, these people are more likely to vote for us, so let's make sure that they are in the districts we want them to be. And maybe it's a thing of like, well, these people have more money, these places where these theaters have more money because the people around them have, that live nearby have more money, so we're going to make sure that our movie gets there. And therefore, because of the wealth distribution and equity in America already, then by just statistically, more white people will have access to be able to see these theaters or see these movies. And like, so I would imagine that that's where it is. It's kind of how it's actually, this is kind of at the end of the system, where the beginning is who's in the movie and who's making the movie. And at the end, this one seems to be affecting the opposite, where it's how is the movie being shown and distributed to people who are watching it. So that's my theory. I don't necessarily know everything about this though.
Well, and you know what? Now that you mention it, it reminds me of how we saw the movie Onward.
Yeah.
How there's a museum in Portland, and
the Portland Art Museum,
and they're like, hey, we are trying to kind of drum up more people coming in. We're trying to get more business, more people coming through. Would you mind if we showed Onward here? And Disney said, yeah, not only can you show it, but you can show it for free. Yeah. Go ahead. We won't charge you anything here. Play it all you want. And so we got to go and watch Onward for free, and it was a good movie. We enjoyed it.
For free at a place that people don't often go, especially if they don't have the money to be able to do something like that.
And we went, and we actually checked out the gift shop. We bought some stuff. We spent money there. Like, it was successful in what it was trying to do. Yeah. I had never set foot in that building. Now I have. That's successful in what it's trying to do.
Yeah, that's a nice
And I guess at this point, when it comes to distribution, it allows for more situations like that to happen, where underprivileged people who couldn't afford to take their family of 5 to a theater now have the opportunity to go see a free movie. This could be a situation in which underrepresented groups are now saying, I now have the opportunity to distribute this to a place in which my underrepresented group can experience this film or be a part of what's
Right.
going on in here. So yeah, I could see that. That's a
Similarly,
little bit different there.
in Portland, we have several Regal theaters,
Right.
but there is one in downtown Portland that shows a lot more independent film, a lot more specifically targeted movies, less like general audience things that might not do as well financially in theaters like our Regal Theater. The one that we're close by is on the outskirts of the Portland metro area, and it
Yeah.
really only gets the major movies that are, you know, targeting wider demographics. And this could affect that as well, because there are a lot of movies that are being shown at that Regal Theater, even if it's a big chain, that are specifically very targeted demographics that often include underrepresented groups and, you know, historical moments and stories and things like that, that even if somebody has the money to go to the theater, you know, and watch it, they would have to drive all the way downtown Portland, which is going to incur more costs like parking and all these things. That's just going to make it harder for them to see. And so this could, I really actually wish, now that I'm thinking about it, wish this went a little farther and included things like that, where it's, you know, you are actually not just the people who are in charge of this, but you are to making the effort to distribute it to, you know, free screenings or underrepresented areas and things like that, to make sure that more people can see it. So okay, so those are the four big areas that this is the four standards that this will be required. To be clear, it will, so it's kind of weird for the 2022 and 2023 Oscar seasons, Oscar awards. Production companies, people nominating these movies, the movies will have to fill out and submit this inclusion standard form. They will not actually have to meet the standards to be qualified. They just have to turn in a thing. And then in 2024, that's the first year where this will officially be required to be passed and the standards to be met. And our theory on that, we talked about this a little bit, is that, well, movies take a while. So a movie that might be considered for 2022 honestly could already be in production and have some irreversible things that would, you know,
everybody's already employed. Everything's already planned.
Exactly. And so it's harder to just say, well, sucks, this is going to be a great movie, but now we can't. Whereas 2024, still several years out, is fairly reasonable to say, okay, you've got several years. Even if you're in pre-production, you can hire different people. You know, things aren't probably too far gone. So it took, for a second, my knee jerk for that was like, why wait so long? But it makes a little sense, especially right now when movies that were going to come out this year are coming out next year. Like there's a lot of movies that are already done that I think it's even like John Wick is coming out in 2022. Like already, like there are movies that were supposed to come out maybe already that are being pushed back so far. But okay, so let's get into the overall thing. The big question is this enough? Does it go too far? Is it kind of right where it should be? What's your take on that?
Overall, I like it. The first one, of course, I had the knee-jerk reaction because the story is the most important part of a movie.
In the actual piece of art, sure.
Right. We make movies to tell stories.
Right.
And when you have something that can limit a story in that way, then all of a sudden you could be taking away from the quality of what could otherwise be an incredible film. And so there's this idea that, if you want to follow A, it's not, you may not be able to, but then when you say, no, you don't have to follow A, you have to do 2 of A through D. So let's pretend you're making a movie that's not going to follow A. Cool. Then do B and C. Make B and C, meet B and C, and you're fine. But this also makes it way easier for movies that are following A. If you're already making a movie that is going to highlight these things and is going to bring these things to the forefront, you only have to meet one other standard, and it's easier for you at that point. And so it gives the ability. So I would say, instead of limiting movies that aren't going to meet these criterion, it actually opens the gate for movies that are already going to meet these criterion to only have to pick one other standard to meet.
Sure.
And so I think that overall, I think these are going to be a good thing, particularly because these are not jobs. This is not saying we will only hire people or only, this is an award. This is just saying, hey, FYI, we're only going to award people that meet these criteria. And so I don't think that it's a huge thing to fret about one way or the other. I think that this is a very good motivator, something to put a fuel in the fire of inclusivity and equality.
Yeah, I think I would lean toward it's not enough, but I think it's good as a first step.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that 5 or 6 years down the line, it's now 3 out of 4. And 10 years from now, you have to hit all 4. And it allows people to kind of like, because it'll get easier to hit these as the companies start to reflect these values. Then it'll just be the standard. And hopefully at some point it would be nice where it's like we get a headline that's, new Batman movie ineligible for, best picture because for some reason they got a bunch of white people. Like it's just like the opposite standard. And I think Batman is actually a really good example because the new Batman movie is kind of doing this. It's got 2 major characters, I would assume, Catwoman and Commissioner Gordon, who are non-white characters.
Yeah.
And I think this is really going to help just people who have an issue. I think for a lot of people, their issue with this is not necessarily that they're racist. Not on the forefront anyway. Most people, everybody is biased, but not,
Yeah.
It's that it feels like it's something new that's trying too hard.
Right.
I could see that being a thing where it's like, or even the fact that, well, why? We haven't done this before, and like, we don't need it now. Plenty of movies that have, whatever. I'm hoping that this will just lead to a gradual, like, not even like having to change your mind, but at a certain point, you'll just go so used to this being a thing that it'll stick out to you when it's the opposite.
And I think that's why they're having movies that are applying for Best Picture fill these standards out now, because I think they're going to be able to have proof at that point to say, look, guys, years ago when we weren't even making it mandatory, all these movies qualified for it anyway.
Right.
It's been done for years, even without people trying. And now that you have to do it, like, just try a little, put a little bit of effort. It's not hard, everybody.
Where I do think it doesn't, I think it should be beyond Best Picture. Maybe not every single freaking category. There are a lot of categories, and some of them wouldn't even really work because it's like lighting or something. And it's a much more specific category. Maybe it could. I don't know. But I'd say like whatever the top 5 like most sought after, best director, best picture, best score, I don't know, best writing, whatever, all have to be regarding movies that specifically meet these categories. So it's not that the director has to be a non-white person. It's that they're directing a movie that is also meeting these categories.
I think that might be rough because, let's pretend this is a Gone with the Wind situation in which you are the black actress that wins Best Supporting Actress, the first black woman to ever win an Oscar, but the rest of the movie doesn't meet the standards.
Yeah.
And therefore, you, who have an incredible performance and you are a black woman, are not eligible for that award.
I guess that's a fair point.
Because the rest of the movie, maybe now modern times, let's say it's a black woman who is the composer and she does a fantastic job.
Sure.
But the production company didn't follow the rest of the standards. And so, but when it comes to Best Picture is in and of itself a group effort.
I guess that's fair. Maybe if it's more about the group effort kind of things, or maybe I guess now I'm thinking it, like maybe it is the opposite of what I said, where it's like lighting and all these other categories that include crew and are not just like that. It's more of the production company that oversees all this. Because I guess like best director, the director has a lot of power, but they're not hiring the marketing team of the production company,
Nope.
So I guess that's fair. I guess it would be more the opposite, where it is the higher ups that are in charge have the ability to do this. And if you want that movie to be nominated, then you have to make sure these things are happening. So
right.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. There is one last thing, or one more thing that I wanted to mention here at the very last thing this article says. And it goes along with what we're talking about. All categories other than Best Picture will be held to their current eligibility requirements. Films in the specialty feature categories, animated feature film, documentary feature, international feature film, submitted for Best Picture / general entry consideration will be addressed separately. So apparently there's still even going to be specifics, like with documentaries, you don't really have a cast in a documentary.
Right.
You have people that you are spotlighting, people you're interviewing. So they are, what this tells me is that they're doing their homework. They're not just, I think it would be, the Oscars are trying to stay relevant.
Yeah.
I think this is a really simple and like effective way to do that off the bat. It's small changes that are clearly demonstrating what they find important.
Right.
And what I like about it is that it's awarding. It's not just like these are the best. Like they find this important in movies, and so they're giving awards to the movies that are doing it. It's just adding another aspect to what qualifies the picture to be best. You know, because before it was pretty vague, and this is codifying a little bit. And I like that. I like that because I think this will help the industry evolve in a peripheral way that will actually have a bigger effect than we can even imagine probably at this point.
And I would say that this makes the best picture not just best because of the movie quality, but because of the impact it's having on the industry as well.
Right.
It's making a more holistic statement of what it means to be the best picture.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I really like that element. Overall, I'm a big fan of this kind of step, and I hope it goes a little farther. I hope they have to meet more of the standards as we go on in the future. But I do understand that it's a baby step. Yes. And that's how these things will actually really take root and be effective, is if it's a gradual change. Even if the other side of me says, nah, just do it and deal, like the racists can get over it, you know, like, nah, they're trying to stay relevant at the same time. So they gotta kind of ride that line. And I think it's doing an okay job here.
Overall, I think this is a great first step. I really, really like it. I said it again, I said before, I think they should make C mandatory. You must meet C and then do the others, because that begins to create a future in which the industry itself is incredibly diverse. Right. And, you know, we've got that part taken care of. But overall, I think these are really, really good steps. And it's not near as limiting as it might. Again, my knee-jerk reaction was to see how limiting it was. But when you really look at the entirety of the thing, it's not.
It's not limiting at all. Most movies are already doing it.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, guys. Well, hey, thank you very, very much for listening. Thank you so much for your support. Let us know what you think about these new standards that the Oscars are making for the Best Picture category. Let us know what you think of our opinions on the matter. We want to say another big thank you to Granger for the use of our theme song, All My Friends Have Wi-Fi, and some of my neighbors do too, off of the album Dear Sam. Go check out their music. Again, that's Granger, Granger, as in Hermione's last name. And they're great. They really are. Go check them out.
Also, I want to send you over to our YouTube channel. You might be listening to this on our YouTube channel, but either way, we've got a lot more stuff on there. We play a lot of video games. It's something we do. We play them separately and together, and we've got lots of playthroughs right now. I believe my Ghost of Tsushima playthrough has started. We're a few days into that, and I play through the entire main story. And then both of us, we are playing Spiritfarer, an excellent indie game right now from Thunder Lotus Games. Yeah. It is, man, the more we play it, I'm surprised by how much I like it.
Exactly. Yes, very much.
Both of us are, and you knew you would love it already. So yeah. So it's really great, and we highly recommend watching it because it approaches death in a way that video games do not very often. And it's worth just kind of giving it that, like, it just does something a little unique, as well as the gameplay being really satisfying and really well constructed. So really excited for that.
Yeah. Thank you again for watching, guys. And always remember, save games, save lives.
See you next week.